Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. If you're watching this video looking for a recommendation on the show before we get into spoilers, yes, go watch id Invaded. It's clever with its world, has a fascinating protagonist, small intricacies that build to grand revelations, and a mostly satisfying conclusion. If you like thrillers at all, or are generally interested in the concept of setting as characterization, you will enjoy this show. So if you haven't, go leave this video behind until you've watched at least the 6th episode. Not because that's the episode we're talking about, but so that you won't know which of the previous episodes has the sucker punch in it. For those of you who either do not care or have already watched the show, we'll be talking about the 4th episode with the fake gravedigger case, specifically how the structure of the episode builds its tension and how the twist unifies the audience with our main character to not only maximize the despair, but also to empower his development. We open the episode proper with a girl trapped in a wooden container, being live streamed to the world at large. It's important to note that we're not limited to the stream's perspective. We have alternate angles which inform us that what is happening in the container at this moment is also what is being streamed. There's a shared chronology between the two. The girl states that the previous record for surviving in this state is approximately 52 hours for the previous victims of the gravedigger. And that puts the entire investigation that this is setting up on a strict time limit. They have approximately 52 hours to find her, or she will die. There's a bit of a time lag. Some TV discussions about the situation, contextualizing this as the work of a serial killer, the staff finding cognition particles for the first time in this gravedigger investigation, and Nari Hisago being let out of solitary all before the investigation is able to start properly. Within the Idwell, the same girl is high above Sakaido's starting position, and that direct character connection is clear since we cut from his death in the Idwell to her back in the container. Not only affirming that reaching her in the Idwell will be the key to save her in real life, but also reasserting the timeline's chronology. Her existence on the live stream is equivalent to her time in the container. We are 7 hours into the broadcast, and Sakaido hasn't even gotten close to reaching her, barely surviving that first obstacle, and the few times he has, getting killed in a second explosion. Sakaido's survival is directly tied into their ability to save the girl, yet he's struggling to make any progress, and as this vertical pan shows, he has a long way to go. The music also helps to build tension in accordance with the setting. The highest notes keep building up and up with a percussion that reverberates with almost miniature explosions. It's a busy piece with so many layers, a perfect match for this hellscape of fire. And yet, Nari Hisago continues to choose to dive back in despite the building mental strain, a singular man on whom the investigation is built upon, literally how the room is constructed. After a time jump, Nari Hisago is given a break and we see the girl on the live stream yet again. She's still alive, there's still time. The team at large has gone without sleep for 2 nights and they'll continue to do so. There's no telling how much longer the girl can last for. Critically, the chief says he does not know if the desire to save people still motivates Nari Hisago, which of course leads into a great insert song as Sakaido's desire to save the girl indeed allows him to reach her, though not without its own tension as his leap can't get him all the way there, causing their hands to miss. You could make the case that that small delay in getting there is foreshadowing for what is about to happen. With the Idwell version of the girl stating the killer's name outright, as well as establishing his motive, him wanting to silence a potential witness to a crime he committed, and, in a twist of fate, having that become true as a result of this kidnapping, the race is on to save the girl. The stream shows her still barely holding on, but the music fades and the reaction of the officer makes it clear. It was just a recording. She's been dead for several days, and thus our return to the Idwell is somewhat of a heartbreaking one. While the murderer gets his just desserts, his Idwell updating to show him on fire and falling to his death, the young girl who says, "Thank you for saving me," is a sucker punch to the gut. The cinematic language of the show's opening told the audience that her being trapped in the barrel, the live stream, and the investigation were all happening side by side, placing us in the same position as the team trying to save her. That hope that built with Sakaido's successful attempt in the well and finding the barrel in the real world was for naught. The killer and the show in concert with him lied to us. The soft piano melody that plays as Sakaido carries the girl to safety is a reminder that, to him at this moment, and as Nari Hisago will think after leaving the well, that he did indeed save the girl. And when he learns the opposite, the pain on his face is instantly clear. The audience felt the same emotion just moments ago. We can immediately empathize with Nari Hisago's pain, even tie it back into his own daughter and his nightmare from last episode. He has failed to save either of them. Running across the gap with her in hand, acting almost fatherly, protecting her eyes from the killer's fall, the soft piano melody that breathes melancholy into the sequence, it's heartbreaking. And in this idwell, there's nowhere for them to escape as both buildings burst into explosions. She's saved in name only, truly the nail in the coffin.
犯人の大野を殺したいか、成久。殺していいんですか？殺したいかどうかと聞いてるんだ。
You can instantly understand the question. This human garbage laughed about slowly condemning an innocent girl to death and tricked everyone, including you. The anger that Nari Hisago feels is the audience's as well, enough that you might wish for him to do to the copycat what he did to the pyrotechnician. And so what follows is even more valuable, because he subverts that anger, asserting that he is not some kind of animal that merely follows his urges. That asks the audience to consider whether they desired that kind of punishment for the copycat, and if they did, were they just accepting the urge to see their own form of justice done? And that builds into what the chief asked earlier. Is Nari Hisago a man who desires to help people or one who desires to kill people? And this total rejection of a desire to kill the copycat seems to affirm that he is indeed someone who still wishes to save others. It doesn't explain what Nari Hisago describes as an overwhelming urge to kill, though if similar to the last episode, it likely has to do with his daughter. This is something to be further explored in the future. But that intense emotional build, which would seem on the face like it should result in him driving yet another man to suicide, and perhaps had the audience's approval to do so, is stopped short because, as this scene makes clear, that's not who Nari Hisago is. There are clearly situations where Nari Hisago is willing to kill, but it is not what defines him. That's an important distinction whose spotlight is turned on the audience with this sequence. What is justice in the case of this copycat? But for Nari Hisago, that desire to save people becomes critical to understanding the empathetic character that he is as our lens into these serial killers' idwells, which in turn makes future revelations all the more powerful. I like stories that pull the rug out from under the audience by framing plot lines as happening simultaneously just to reveal that we'd been tricked by the narrative medium itself. You've probably seen this before, especially when subjective time is at play, but something about the shock or horror that unifies the audience with the characters on screen is something that I've always been drawn to. And there is something so beautiful about hope leading to maximized despair, straight from Fate Zero's caster, and yet our protagonist denying the urge to lash out against what the audience would likely deem as unfair. All this happens in what I would call the least interesting idwell in the show, which goes to show that It Invaded does not stand purely on its premise. It's got some pretty good bones to go along with it.